The Bach family did not begin with evil. It began with fear. In the early years, when famine and disease erased entire lineages overnight, survival itself was considered a virtue. To live longer than one's neighbors was seen as proof of heaven's favor. And so, when death came too often to the gates of the Bach household, their ancestors searched not for acceptance, but for delay. They found it carved into flesh. The forbidden mark was etched during a winter when the ground would not yield crops and the dead outnumbered the living. The symbol was ancient, older than doctrine, older than written law. It promised endurance, protection, and continuity if the bearer possessed the strength to carry its weight. The ancestor did not, yet the mark answered all the same. From that night onward, death hesitated at the Bach family's door. Illness faded, fortune accumulated. The family endured, while others vanished into unmarked graves. What no one realized was that life had not been granted, it had been deferred, and deferral always demands payment. Generations later, the mark alone was no longer enough. Beneath the Bach estate lay a dormant dragon vein, an ancient current of geomantic force that bound land, blood, and time together. The elders felt it, pulsing beneath their feet, like a restrained breath. When the family faced decline once more, they turned not to heaven, but to the earth itself. The covenant was sealed with blood. Names were erased from ancestral tablets. Promises were spoken without witnesses. The pact was simple and merciless. The dragon vein would sustain the Bach bloodline, and in return, the family would never truly conclude. From that moment, every child born into the Bach lineage carried a silent burden. Their lives were extended, but no longer sovereign. They belonged partly to the land that fed them. Those who lived on borrowed years learned a quiet terror. They aged slowly, unnaturally. Their reflections lagged behind. Their movements, hunger dulled. Sleep brought no restoration. The world accepted them only halfway, as if uncertain whether they still qualified as living. They attended funerals with the same faces they wore decades earlier. Friends withered, spouses aged, children grew old beneath their unchanging gaze. The Bach family remained, and remaining, they began to decay from within. Imbalance never announces itself loudly. At first, animals avoided the estate. Wells dried without reason. Time misaligned. Candles burned too quickly, while wounds healed too slowly. Mirrors showed expressions that lingered too long. The dragon vein was responding. Heaven's order does not strike in anger. It adjusts. It bends reality until resistance becomes unbearable. The land itself began to remember what the Bach family had tried to forget: that continuation without conclusion is a violation of balance. The white specter was not summoned. It emerged naturally, as all unresolved things do. It was not a demon, nor a god. It was the crystallization of refusal, the accumulated will of generations who chose survival over surrender. It bore the faces of the dead and the living alike, bound together by unfinished endings. When it stood before the dragon vein, there was no battle, only recognition. Life demanded return. The price of borrowed existence could no longer be postponed. When the covenant ended, there was no catastrophe. The sun rose as it always had. Wind passed gently through the estate. The earth exhaled, relieved. The Bach family did not disappear. They simply began to age correctly. Illness returned, weakness followed, death reclaimed its rightful rhythm. The white specter dissolved, no longer sustained by fear or denial. Heaven did not condemn the Bach family. It never had. Karma is not punishment, it is balance delayed. And when the last of the borrowed years was spent, only one question remained, soft, unanswered, and human. If life could be extended by borrowing, how long would you choose to owe? If the story of karma, the heavenly way, and the price of continuing to live still lingers within you, consider subscribing to and following the channel. Other philosophical, myth-laden journeys are waiting to unfold, slowly, quietly, and not easily forgotten.